Hey, we have some new photos that came out. We'll start with a little discussion on Andor, and I want to share these photos. Meg covered them this morning, and so it's always nice to catch Star Wars Meg's content every day. It's the first thing I look for every day, and I look for her the notice of her videos going live. So we've got these photos. The first one here, you see Cassian hiding behind. It looks like a part that was on a like a conveyor belt, and so he's hiding behind that. And we got some blaster shots. I'm trying to make out in the background. I can't quite tell back here if this is a droid, a mech, a person. Okay, do you guys have a sense for what that is?
I think that might be deceptive. I think that's just a part of that wreckage there. Because in the trailer, we see this scene, and it looks like people are shooting down from him from above. I don't think that's anything. I think that's just part of the scenery.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think it's just Rebel.
But it does, Santa. When you pointed it out, I went, "Oh wow, what is that?" But I think that my eyes are making something out of nothing.
I had to look for a second, but I do think that going off of the trailer, I think it's just
it very well could be where you're getting a shape here, like a head, an arm, but that very well could be. And then the second picture, another one of Mon Mothma,
gorgeous,
coming through the hall.
Love it.
Oh, and there's been a lot of talk about how cinematic this show is going to be. How good it looks, and how much they used real sets, physical sets.
Didn't use the volume at all.
That's what he said, but he's wrong. They did.
Yeah, volume is certainly used, but very
he
low
clarified
extent.
today.
Yeah.
He clarified today because they've been interviews since that the content of his quote initially was not that the volume is some sort of bad technology or anything like that. Just that you have to choose to either be a volume show or a non-volume show at the beginning of production, and that they did make use of it at points. You can see in this trailer there are shots that look like volume shots, but like it's not entirely based on it. So
let
me take that back.
Part of it is when you see the shot of her sitting on this couch back here. There's another scene in the trailer, and Jason Ward validated this for us, verified it, that when she's sitting on that couch, they're in the volume. All the back behind her, the Coruscant back there is the volume. It's not done in green screen.
No, Santa, they built a real Coruscant. You don't know this, right? They have the budget. They built Coruscant is real.
That's what I heard. They did use the volume for some of it, for sure. And so here we see this B2 Emo, right? The family droid that's been there for some time, and this shot. I think it's this actress here that has caused the ruckus.
Yeah, she has.
Yes. So we've kind of talked about that. For Cachelo Lopez, Mr. Lopez from Argentina, good to see you, my friend. And he was our very first giveaway winner. He won all kinds of stuff. He's got business partners in Florida. Mr. Lopez, have you made it to Florida to get your stuff yet? I sent a big box of toys down there for him to get. Hopefully he's been able to get that. So, so she calls the ruckus. And I've had a great amount of interaction with some of Thor Skywalker's community over the last 24 hours because some people say things that aren't true. And then I say things that are true, and then they want to argue with me about it. So
sounds like a Star Wars movie.
That sounds familiar, Santa.
It was an interesting way to frame that.
Well, it's interesting because there are folks. It is as the label shill, right? I get called that all the time, especially when I get into some of these discussions with folks, and I say we'll talk about the our Star Wars hot takes here in a minute. But when I tell them some of my hot takes, they're like, "Oh, I see. You're blah blah blah," and then I have to defend myself, and they're like, "Well, name me this or name me that," and they start challenging your fandom, and then they're like,
"Who Revan is?"
Yeah, exactly. Well, name me one sequel trilogy character that fill in the blank, right? And if you answer the question, then they'll tell you why that's a bad character, right? And then if you answer the question again, they'll again tell you why you're an idiot, right? So that happens. It's great. So I love being able to hang out with folks who can actually have some nuanced conversation without name calling. It's great, and I know that folks on the other side of the fandom get name called by people on our side of the fandom, and that doesn't make that right either. So I just kind of embrace the shill moniker. Say, fine. You want to call me a shill? I'll take it. And maybe one day Disney will send me a check. But for now,
I'm still waiting on mine. I mean, it's like 2 years late. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, Palpamemes, you need like a name plaque at this point for
Dude, they need to pay me for the stuff I've done for them. Like, come on.
They gotta reimburse you. They gotta reimburse you for that billboard with the amount that comes up.
Damn.
I know.
Look at this still.
What are y'all doing? I'm
You
waiting.
see that person? Yeah.
it's good. So this lady's caused a problem, right? So there's a big kerfuffle over what she has said, and it had to do with some Trumpian kind of messaging that was inspired in the filming. Now, whether remember, it's this lady, not the director, not the writers. It's one of the actors on the set who wanted to make these parallels. And I was listening to Den of Nerds this morning, and I thought Josh was pretty balanced in how he covered it. All it does is cause a dust up where, once the dust settles, you're like, oh, I think we can move forward. Somebody comes out, says something, and boom, the dust is in the air again, right? I'm not going to take any issue with what she said, because I think, and I was making this argument with Thor Skywalker's folks for the last 24 hours, basically, maybe 20 hours, that George Lucas, for the original trilogy, was very clear that he took some inspiration in some of the themes throughout the original trilogy had to do with the Vietnam War and anti-Nixon stances. So he was a big anti-Nixon dude, and the messaging in there against the Vietnam War and Nixon's policies, he saw them as being empirical, right? Like the U.S. was acting like establishing an empire, and he was trying to put that messaging into Star Wars, at least to some degree. And sure, Star Wars has many, many layers, and he takes inspiration from all kinds of things. Not just, it wasn't a political narrative movie, right? He didn't create it as a political narrative, but that's certainly part of his inspiration behind the story. It's clear, and he can directly map characters to political institutions, politicians, and so on, right? The same is clear of the prequel trilogy. He wasn't a fan of Bush and Cheney.
I mean, in the prequels, he literally names characters after prominent political figures he didn't like at the time. So,
Disney Star Wars hasn't gone that far, but we'll see. We'll see if they reach that level.
Exactly, and I think by Andor saying, even if it is 100% legitimate and it's not just this actress's opinion, it's likely to play out in the same way that the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy did, in its timeless kind of motives of an empire enforcing its power over people groups, and those people groups happen to be refugees. And it's been my stand that I think the parallels to what's going on right now, the war in Ukraine, will be more relevant than the Trump things. Trump's not president anymore. And this was written before the war in Ukraine began, but that just shows the timeless nature of it. It's not going to be in a box where, 20 years from now, when Trump is long, part of memory, it's not going to be irrelevant. That's my take.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, art imitates life, and it always has been from the beginning of time, since art was a thing created by anyone. Any artist is inspired by something in real life, whether that's politically, socially, anything. And so it's just this silly idea that suddenly, I don't know when they started this whole woke thing, but ever since 2015, we'll say, because I remember that's when that kind of idea started popping up, that, oh, now these artists are forcing their political agendas onto us. It's like, no, art imitates life. It's always been that way. If you don't see that, then you're not either properly watching the films or listening to the music or whatever it is, or B, you're just naive and in denial. And I see that a lot. And it's like, I'm not saying I agree with everything George did, but when it comes to his prequels, I know we can talk about the originals, but the prequels especially, they were more direct with his political understandings and views. And again, people are in denial about that. And it's like, no, it's right there. Imagine if in Disney Star Wars, there was a movie, say in episode 9, and there's a line written in episode 9 that's directly taken from something that, I don't know, Joe Biden or Donald Trump said, like a very famous line that was very controversial. Well, that's what happened in Revenge of the Sith with "If you're not with me, you're my enemy." That was directly inspired and written almost word for word from George Bush, I believe. It was after the 9/11 attacks. I believe that's when he said. I could be off on that, but it's always been a thing, especially with Star Wars. I mean, it's Star Wars. I mean, come on, guys, what are we doing? Getting mad at
there's
politics.
There's an example I learned when I was in college. I went on a tour in Europe. We went, and when we were in Italy, we went to the Vatican, and part of that whole thing, we went into Sistine Chapel, one of the most iconic pieces of artwork in human history, right? And in that room, one of the paintings shows some of the politicians of the day, right? It's very clear who they were, being drug into hell. Okay, I'm like.
SJW.
They were woke back in woke artists in 1300.
You don't get more direct in your messaging than that, right? Like, you imagine having like part of the scene, somebody that looks like Trump being actually drug into hell, right? Like, okay, this has been around forever. This isn't modern. Throwing politics into your art or artists have been doing this for ages. Go to the Sistine Chapel and do some homework.
Yeah, the one I like to bring up.
New World Order, new wave.
In Phantom Menace, Phantom Menace has Newt Gunray and Lot Dodd are the viceroy and senator for the Trade Federation, respectively. And George just said it's Newt Gingrich and Frank Dodd and Chris Dodd of the who was a senator at the time, and Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House. And it's like that he just took their names and made them the villains of the movie.
Exactly.
I don't know how much more on the nose you have to get. But that stuff. But to your point, Santa, that stuff doesn't hold up on to a child 20 years later. They don't make that connection, and nor did I even at the time, only a few years removed. So in 20 years, if Andor has a Trumpian theme, it'll apply to whatever's going on then, just as the original trilogy, even though when writing it in those meetings, you can read the behind the scenes. Like George literally says, Palpatine is Richard Nixon. You don't have to understand it with that lens, because it applies to all of these struggles, because that's how good Star Wars is. But it is explicitly this messaging, though. So.
Exactly.
It doesn't change the story, it's the same story. The story is going to be, whether it's influenced or not by real world ideas and issues and stuff, it's still a story, and
Valorum was Bill Clinton, but
that's
another one.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just it's let's wait and we'll see when it comes out, if it's direct, like heavy-handed, ham-fisted, in your face kind of politics, and then we can discuss it. in the context of art, and in the context of cinema, and in the context of entertainment, did it work? How did they execute it? How well was it done? The Sistine Chapel is a timeless piece of art that was very political.
I don't imagine it being like too overbearing with that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
At least,
I don't either.
At least just reading it from what we know about the show. I don't know.
Hey,
Been on
LB
for a
is here
while.
again. As friends with LB, I heard LB is not a POC. He's actually a black man. That's what I heard. LB gets the joke. He understands. Go ahead.
don't get
Sorry,
it. Sorry.
I interrupted.
All good.
First of all, I love these Joe Biden comments. These have me cracking up. That quote, America can be described in one word. They just
Yeah,
go,
it is.
so good.
It's a great
That's
clip.
so good. I've got that video saved. That's anyways.
two.
Not to sidetrack. I saw that comment. It got me.
Yeah, and Trump gave us plenty too. You know,
it's
what was the one tweet that he had?
How could I forget?
Yeah, Kerfefe. Kerfefe. Yeah,
I've got-
Kerfefe. Yeah.
This is an account called Donald Trump Tweets on Twitter, and I love it. I mean, his tweets go back to like 2012, and he hasn't changed. They're insane. It's so funny. Anyways.
All right, so we got a couple of other photos here from Andor. Again, just we saw this village, and then this last one. Again, these are just stills from Empire Magazine. Overall, I am super excited for Andor. I'm anxious to see a spy thriller set in the Star Wars universe. But that is the thing that got my attention from the get-go. Like, why would anybody care about people that die? We already know how this ends. But a spy thriller in Star Wars, I'm super excited to see it.
Yeah, me too. I have been dying to see this show. I mean, obviously, I think everybody was pretty iffy on it from the beginning when they announced it. They're like, "Oh, an Andor show? Like, why are we doing that? It doesn't really quite make sense." But then, after looking into like the team behind the show and like how the show is being, how the show is like being dealt with, so they're doing it in arcs and all this stuff. I think it is. I'm super excited. The team is insane.
Johnny, I'm looking forward to it. Are you possessed?
Am I dead freeze? Oh no.
Yeah, you froze. It's.
I was talking.
It is. Yeah, you can't.
Your audio
You'll have to
came through,
watch
so
it.
it's like-
Oh,
You'll have to watch it on the replay. It's fantastic.
okay, awesome. Well, there we go. That's my piece. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you. Thank you,
It was
everybody.
great. It was great.